And welcome back to Across the Board with Ian the Colonel here on Hawk Radio, hawkradio.org, and acrosstheboardradio.com. Colonel, if you asked me to name one of my favorite bands of the past, I want to say 20 years or so, definitely high up on the list has got to be Stabbing Westward.
Yeah, you've always been a big fan of that genre.
Yeah,
as well.
my sister, she always had all their CDs back when we had CDs. Remember those? Yeah. And big fan of them. And then the band broke up. That really sucked. And some of the members have gone on to do other things. Most notably, Chris Hall has gone on to create The Dreaming. It has been around for several years. And Chris is live with us on the show right now. Chris, welcome to the show.
20 years, huh? That sounds like a long time.
Makes you sound old, right? Well, in that a couple decades. I mean, not that you guys have been around that long.
Yeah,
anyway,
no, it's true. It's weird.
Yeah. So, Chris, The Dreaming, loving the new stuff. And the Colonel and I both think it sounds a lot like, for fans that know Stabbing Westward that don't know The Dreaming, first off, where have you been? But I would say it sounds like more like Darkest Days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that album.
I feel like the new Dreaming record picks up where Darkest Days left off.
Yeah.
It should have been the follow-up to Darkest Days, if anything, rather than that kind of pop rock thing that ended up happening.
Yeah, agreed, man, and I like where it's picked up. So let's go chronologically here and talk a little bit about the old band for a second here. Stabbing Westward, one of my favorite videos of all time, of the past 100 years, let's say. One of my favorite videos of all time. Yeah. The only video, actually, that I have on my iPod is Shame.
Shame. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Only good video.
It was an amazing video, yeah. So, what?
Don't be so hard on yourself, Chris. Come on.
Well, that was just a really good video. Videos are stupid by nature, generally, but that one in particular was really good.
It was. Now, who was the who created the concept for that?
I can't remember his name.
Well, it wasn't you? That's what I was asking. I didn't know if it was.
It was, yeah, the director came up with the concept. He's the same guy who did the Radiohead video where Tom York is just laying on the ground at the bottom of a building, looking like he jumped.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't. I have a terrible memory. But yeah, he came up with the entire video concept and basically told us flat out, this is the idea. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to add more singer or more drummer because the drummer didn't get enough attention or anything like that. We're going to shoot it, scene by scene exactly like this, and this is how it's going to play out.
Wow.
And then halfway through the video, he was watching the interaction with the band, like as we were, having meetings about the video and shooting some of the stuff, and he started to notice some personality qualities about the band. Mm-hmm. And then he changed it a little bit. He actually made it so that I never got to sit down with the rest of the band and eat popcorn and wear 3D glasses. I had to stay there by myself and become sort of isolated from the rest of the guys and then look around and realize they were all gone. He kind of picked that up from the band itself, from us hanging out for a while, and thought, okay, this is pretty reflective of the relationships within the band. So
clearly, foreshadowing, yeah.
Yeah, that was hands down the best concept for a video, not only for us, but I think one of the better concepts for a video out there at the time.
It was amazing.
It was beautifully shot and well done by all of you guys. If I understand correctly, I may be wrong on this, the girl who was being obsessed over in the video is your wife, is that correct?
No.
Oh. See, there you go. Rumors, man.
That's information.
Yeah, that's why you have to ask these things. You never know.
Yeah.
Who were the people in the video then? Because the villain, I guess that's what you would consider him. Who was he? Because he looks familiar to me, but I can't.
He's been in a ton of movies since then. He's been in a bunch of movies now. He was in a couple of the teen horror movies. It's weird because I see him and I see people from the Save Yourself video.
Mm-hmm.
I see them, and then I see the I don't know what you call them, little people. From the Sometimes It Hurts, we had a bunch of these.
Oh, okay, yeah, yep.
Yeah, little people. They're all over the place. I have a picture with me and all of them, and I see them on every Christmas. Every AT&T elf shot is those guys.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys. But yeah.
Well, you said little people.
Yeah,
I didn't know
who he is. His name was Clint. I remember that.
Okay, I didn't know if you were big time and trying to say like craft services, like they were the little people or something.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
The Munchkins, that's what it was. It was the Munchkins from the, I know that's not an official term, but they were pretending to be the Munchkins in the Sometimes It Hurts video. That video was supposed to be a Wizard of Oz themed video.
Yeah.
And then when the label saw it, they got worried about being sued, and so they took out all references to Wizard of Oz. So then it was just me being tortured by little people. It made no sense at all.
Oh, man. Well, let me ask you this, though. I originally when the song came out, we were still talking about shame, and watching the video, I put two and two together, and I'm like, okay, so it's about this obsessive guy and, all of this. But now I recently read that there was a subtitle to the song itself that referenced God, and that actually that's what the song may have been about. Is that correct?
No, there's two versions of the song. The original version of the song was written before we ever got signed to Columbia, back when it was just me and Walter, or Walter and I. I've been working on my grammar lately. The original song had completely different lyrics and a totally different chorus, even melodically. And that song was about kind of about God, but it was kind of about how the religious right would tout God and a holier than thou sort of attitude when we were watching a lot of the results of that, through war and whatnot. And anyway, it was my teenage anti-God song. Mm. But that never spilled over into the version that made it on, was that Darkest Days or Wither?
Wither.
Darkest Days. No, Wither.
Wither, yeah.
Yeah. Because it was such an old song by the time Wither came out. That never spilled over. I rewrote all the lyrics for that version to sort of reflect what was going on.
And you know what? It's one of those songs that stands the test of time. I think, a lot of your songs really, and I'm being serious, were just fantastic songs that I can listen to for the rest of my life and know they've made an impact on me. I mean, seriously, the way it came about it was like no one knew anything about, Stabbing Westward, and all of a sudden, bam, you guys are, one of the tops on the scene at the time. What do you think helps contribute to that? What along your career path has helped you elevate to that next level?
I don't know. I mean, we still play those songs live in the Dreaming, and they a couple of them stand up perfectly well with the stuff we're writing now. And if we play with, more modern bands or whatever, Shame can still stand up there as a rock anthem with anybody. Some of the other ones, What Do I Have to Do? It was so based on synths and technology and sounds that when you break it down to a rock band, it's kind of just one or two chords and gets a little redundant. I think the songs that were based more on good songwriting, like, interesting chord changes, strong melodies, and words that really came from the soul and like can touch the listener. I think that's where the strength of Stabbing was, as opposed to sometimes I felt like we got caught up in the genre too much, and sounds and synths and drum loops became the focal point as opposed to songwriting. And so the ones that were actually well written songs are the ones that stood the test of time, I think.
What bands did you listen to in the synth era, that I guess that inspired you to write that type of music? I would say I heard maybe something like an old Information Society type background.
No? That's what's funny is we had three different camps in the band. We had Walter, who wrote, he was technically the keyboard player, and he wrote the programming on stuff like Save Yourself, Slipping Away kind of stuff. He was the real techno kind of guy, and he was really early on in his listening. He and I listened to a lot of the same stuff, but by the point that we were doing the Stabbing stuff, he was really into like Moby and more of the techno kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Andy, the drummer, he wrote Sometimes It Hurts, What Do I Have to Do, Haunting Me, and the Worst Song Ever, Perfect, on the last album. And he was very much into like Information Society and the real cheesy kind of 80s pop kind of stuff. Saying
Okay.
Information is cheesy, but the you know, he would listen to Erasure instead of Depeche Mode. You know, he's that, like, more of the major melodies kind of pop kind of guy. And then I was really into early Ministry, like before, like Mine Is a Terrible Thing to Taste Back, but I really liked Land of Rape and Honey and Twitch and the really early Ministry stuff. And like the good, darker Depeche Mode stuff.
Oh, good
and
call,
I was
man.
a huge Nine Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine fan. I thought that record was near perfect.
Absolutely.
As far as the blending of really cool synth sounds and drum machines with, you know, emotional vocals and stuff.
That was incredible.
I can agree with that. Now, let's fast forward to 2002. The band, you get a little thing going here with Johnny Harrow, and you get this idea. What happened from there? How did the genesis of the Dreaming progress from there?
Slowly, painfully. Yeah, we Johnny and I hooked up almost before the band broke up. The band was Johnny had been in the band before. We toured with him for a summer when our drummer had broken his collarbone, and he was just an amazing drummer. He brought this really live rock feel to the band that had been very kind of machiney and stiff before, and we kind of tried to get him to stay, but I got outvoted. There's like a 2-2 vote anyway. But when the end of Stabbing came near, I called Johnny and said, "Hey, you know, I think this is winding down at this point. Do you want to get together and work on some music? I've got almost a whole album's worth of stuff that I'd written for the next Stabbing record, but I don't think it's ever going to see the light of day. So rather than giving it to them, I'm just going to hang on to it, and then we can, you know, do it together." And he was really stoked about it. And I thought it was going to be, you know, 6 months or something, but it was literally 3 or 4 days later that our manager called a meeting, and surprise, everything fell apart. But we started working on music, but it was, I think the breakup of the band affected me emotionally more than I was aware of. I thought that if I just started doing something else, that it would, you know, take my mind off of it. Wouldn't be a big deal. But it's kind of like trying to date after your wife died or something, you know. It's like I just wasn't really ready to do anything. So it took almost 1.5 years of us sort of kicking it around and writing songs and not really sure what direction we wanted to go in and stuff before we even put together a live band. So it was a kind of a long, slow process. And even then, I think that a lot of people thought that we were going to just immediately put something together and make a record, put it out, and get signed and go on tour, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't happen. We ended up picking up Rob McDermott, who's the manager for Linkin Park at the time, and he had been part of the management team for Stabbing Westward when we broke up. No, before we broke he was part of the management team during Wither and Darkest Days when we were at our height.
Right.
And then we fired them and hired the woman who eventually broke up the band. So he ended up managing the Dreaming for a couple of years. And I think when that happened, we all thought, okay, well, now we're going to just go ahead and get signed and go on tour and life will resume as normal. But that didn't happen either. It just it was right when MP3 downloads and all that was taking over and labels were, you know, falling apart. We almost got a deal once, and then the label literally went bankrupt a week later, and which we didn't have anything to do with. But it was just constantly like that. Like the whole industry was just sort of crumbling around us, and it was just the worst time to be an unsigned band. So we just did it ourselves. We put out our own album called Etched in Blood, which we recorded with a variety of producers and stuff, a bunch of different studios, and went on tour for like 2 years and just played, you know, hundreds and hundreds of shows, and you know, tried to get that going. And then when that finally wound down after a couple of years, we had, you know, we weren't going to sell anymore. We were just playing to the same people, and they'd already bought the record twice or whatever. We decided to go back home and start a new record, which ended up being the new record Puppet. And when we did that, that's when we ended up getting signed and picking up a new management team and whatnot. That's when everything started.
There you go. That's
Yeah, that's insight into how bands come about.
They told you I babble.
No,
That's not babbling. I like it.
It gives us a lot of insight how some bands get the fast track and some bands have to take a little bit of a longer path.
Yeah, that's what we want to know from the horse's mouth.
I mean, and that's it's good to hear that at least you're finally starting to see what you're really wanting out of the band. And we've mentioned you and Johnny in the band. Who else is in the band and their backgrounds as well?
You want to know who's been in the band or who's in the band?
Who's in the band now? I mean, you've had Jinx in the band from Black Veil Brides.
Was in the band. Yeah, Black Veil Brides. But he's actually Jinx from The Dreaming, who's now in Black Veil Brides.
Nice. There you go. And you had Carlton from Dead Z.
From Dead Z.
Yep. But who's in the band now?
He's the guitarist on the new album. He played the majority of the guitars.
Okay.
We've had Eric Griffin from the Genitortures and Murder Dolls. He played with us for a couple months. And that didn't pan out so well. We've had a bunch of people in the since we split with Jinx. We've been trying to fill his position constantly, just like rotating guitar players in for 6 months to see how they do, and then ultimately not liking them, and then moving on to other people. But the lineup right now has felt pretty consistent. We've got Rich Jasmine, who played. He was in the band before. He played a bunch of guitars on Puppet, and then him and the original bass player in the band got in some stupid pissing match about a chick, and it came to a head on tour in the middle of the desert.
Oh, no.
And our bass player freaked out and kicked Rich out of the band in the middle of the desert with the ultimatum: either call her and tell her this isn't true, or walk home. We're in the middle of the desert. And
really?
So it all just came to this ugly head, and the band didn't know what to do because we didn't really know what was going on, but bass player had been in the band for 5 years. Rich had been in the band for 6 months. You side with the guy who's been in the band longer. But as soon as he was out of the band, I called Rich back and said, "Hey, dude, you're a really good guitar player. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Come back and play with us." So
nobody got abandoned in the desert, huh?
He didn't get abandoned in the desert.
That's
he
good.
Actually made it all the way back to L.A., but it was a really stressful hour. We stopped at a Dairy Queen, and I just wanted to eat my chili dog. And every time I would try and take a bite, someone would start yelling and screaming, and it got cold. And I just remember, what a waste. Good chili dog.
Jeez, wow.
You just wanted to grill and chill, my man. Wow.
Yeah. So Rich is playing with us now, and he's been back in the band for about 6 months, and it feels really good. We just did a month-long tour from November to Christmas, and everyone that was it was a brutal tour across the Midwest when it was really cold. Played up in Fargo, and we were doing the couch tour where we were pretty much crashing with fans in the van, and everyone did great.
Good.
I was pretty pleased. We got Martin Kelly from Living Deadlights, cool kind of LA punk band, and then we've got Nick Chiano from he was in American Head Charge and kind of industrial metal band called Divots.
Mm-hmm.
No, Ricketts. My bad. Ricketts.
Yeah.
Divots
much worse.
Totally different band. Ricketts. Yeah.
Divots is probably good too. And hey, if you come through our area,
I made that word up.
Yeah. I have a small couch, but hey, you guys are welcome to crash at my place anytime, man.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in Baltimore though, right?
Outside of Baltimore, yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a house in Baltimore that we stay at. Our buddy Mike lives out there, and whenever we do the East Coast, we stay at Mike's house and just go home there every night. So if we can drive 3 hours and come home, we'll just always crash at Mike's house. So we have a Baltimore resident kind of
party at Mike's house.
There's good parties.
But how are the chili dogs? That's the question.
I had a chili dog there, yeah.
There you go. How do you feel about remixes? You talked about you redid some of your own songs, not with remixes, but you redid Shame with new lyrics and everything like that. Back in the Stabbing days, Josh Wink redid Torn Apart on the Spawn soundtrack. Right. How did you feel about that remix? And these days, a lot of bands are mixing in, like Skrillex is doing stuff for them, or Bass Nectar, somebody like that. How do you...
It's cool. I mean, it was always in the early days of industrial. Every single would have 4 or 5 remixes. It was cool. I've been thinking about having somebody do that. Maybe having a lot of people have contests where their fans give them the stems and let them do some remixes.
Right.
yeah, I think it's cool, especially if you can get it into some of the like harder dance clubs and stuff like that. I think the dubstep stuff is getting a little. It's like Skrillex is doing it, and it's cool, and I like it. It reminds me a lot of the early noisy kind of industrial stuff.
Yep.
But now everyone in the world is jumping on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like Jay from Orgy is trying to be a dubstep remixer now, like a dubstep DJ.
Really?
It's like, dude, find your own voice.
Right.
You know?
Everyone's trying to be different than everyone else.
I didn't know Orgy was still around.
Orgy is reformed
Okay.
using two members of the Dreaming.
Oh.
Carlton and Brent, the bass player and the guitar player from the Dreaming, and then another member of Dead Z, the bass player from Dead Z.
Okay, here's what I just realized, that, you know, there's 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Apparently in the music world, there's 6 degrees from Christopher Hall.
Yeah, right.
Because you've been in a band with everybody, or they've been in a band with you.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, Dwight Yoakam's, you know, in a band with you somewhere along their line, if you do, you know.
Somehow.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel like there's stability now, though, with the lineup that you have?
What's that?
Do you feel like you have the stability you're looking for with the band lineup you have now?
I want to say yes, but I'm afraid to.
You don't want to get your hopes up.
I think when you do a Midwest van tour in December, and it's 14 below in Fargo, and we were doing, on average, like 12-hour drives between cities, and a lot of times we'd have to wake up at 7 a.m. to do an acoustic performance on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
We did it without a trailer. So we pulled out 2 of the bench seats of the van, built a plywood wall, stacked the gear back there, so then all 5 of us would have to squeeze into 2 bench seats and 2 captain's chairs. When you can do that for a month and sleep on couches, and everyone comes home happy, you know, and we got paid. We actually made enough money and saved enough money doing it that way that everyone made some money at the end of the tour. And then come, you know, New Year's, everyone's like, hey, when are we going to play again? That's a band.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know? It's when you go through the really hard times together and turn it into a good time, and that's when it really feels like, okay, this is actually a band, not just a bunch of guys looking for a free ride.
Across the board here on hawkradio.org and acrosstheboardradio.com with Christopher Hall, formerly of Stabbing Westward, now of The Dreaming, and has played with every musician on earth, we know. The Puppet is the latest release.
November?
Yeah, November 1st of last year.
1st.
Yep. So, you know, go out and check that out now. Where can where can the fans keep up with you? I know you don't have a personal Facebook, but where
the
can
band has a
people
Facebook page, The
Right.
Dreaming, and then The Dreaming LA is our Twitter page as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I still go on the band Facebook page once a day and sort of check and see what's going on. If anyone leaves any messages or comments up there, and then if there's anything to post, I post. Our manager and our label's like, oh, you need to post more on Facebook. What do you want us to post? We're waiting on tour dates.
Yeah, you're writing music
right now,
and stuff.
There's no dates to announce. We're still waiting on the dates to arrive. Well, tell them dates are coming. I've told them that. Every time I say dates are coming, you get these 187 comments. Play in D.C., play in Baltimore, play in Saginaw, Michigan, come play in France. Come and say, oh my God, we're not taking requests.
Yeah.
Actually looking for them.
Don't you know how social networking works? I mean, you have to say, got up, sneezed, ate breakfast, had peppers in my eggs. You know, you got to have something for everything. It's insane.
I don't get it. Who cares? I don't care about what anyone else is eating for breakfast and why they would care what I'm eating for breakfast.
A lot of people with kids will put stuff out, too. Like, Tyler had his first tooth out today, and it's like, come on, man. Like, I've got other stuff going on, really.
Let's just go
I
back
was
to the 90s.
inspired by a guy who took a 90-day hiatus from email, Facebook, and something else. Like, maybe it was like his cell phone in general.
Sweet freedom.
And what's that?
Sweet freedom. That'd be nice.
Yeah, and he ended up getting rid of a bunch of his so-called friends, and then he reconnected with a girlfriend that he had sort of lost in the process of
Okay.
Modern society, where he just didn't pay enough attention to her. And he wrote this whole long thing. I think it was like in the New Yorker or something like that. And I read that, and I was just really inspired by it, because there's times that we'll go out as a band, and we'll all be sitting at a bar or a booth or something, and everyone's got their freaking phone out.
Yeah.
And they're just staring at they're posting what they're doing on Facebook, and it's like, well, that's not, if that's social, then what is it that we're actually doing at this table? How we're not actually socializing at all. You're all staring at your phone, sharing your fake life on Facebook when we should be actually living life, you know, right here, right now. And that's kind of my whole Facebook thing. I don't care what anyone else is doing, and nothing I do is exciting enough to warrant a post.
I agree about the lack of face-to-face socializing and everything. It really, really is crazy. And when you think about how much time people are spending behind computers now, and instead of like going out and, I don't know, breathing fresh air, you know,
or even just having a conversation. It's so hard to if you meet someone and have coffee or whatever, it's almost impossible to actually have a conversation because everyone's sitting there staring at their phone. You
Right.
could text somebody across the table easier than getting them to look at you and say something.
It's also damaging a lot of people's, you know, the way they talk and write and everything, because everything's abbreviated these days, you know, like later with an 8 in it and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It really is wild. But in any case, go ahead, Carl.
I was going to say, and also one of the things, too, is if people want to hear something from the new album, Puppet, if I remember correctly, you had, or maybe you still have, on the Facebook page for the Dreaming, you had an acoustic version of Puppet up there, if I remember correctly.
Of Breathing, actually.
That's right. And then
Yeah.
Every Trace, I believe, is the current single.
Yep.
And it was featured in the Matt Hamill movie. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it was UFC 143, the UFC fight this last weekend.
Good.
One of the fighters actually came out to the song,
That's right. I did remember hearing about
which
that.
is really, really cool.
Do you
Because
follow
we were
MMA?
all watching at a bar, and yeah, we were watching it, and I was like, that's me.
Do you follow
That's pretty
MMA?
cool. What's that?
Do you follow MMA at all?
Yeah, I like fighting a lot.
Who's your favorite?
I don't have a favorite.
No, I just enjoy the sport in
I
general.
just like watching people bash each other. Joe Rogan would be my favorite, actually. I like listening to him yell and scream like he could actually do it
You
in
know,
the background.
he's a funny guy. It's his stand-up. He is hysterical, and it just doesn't translate well when he's on doing commentary for the UFC. It doesn't.
Do you like
He
this?
actually is pretty badass, I heard. I heard he's a
Yeah.
pretty good fighter.
Oh yeah, he is.
So are you into the kind of the antagonist fighters though, like a Nick Diaz, or are you more for, you know, Condit, which was, you know, the big fight from this past weekend?
I'm
Of course,
kind of old school.
yeah, like
So,
Tito
like,
Ortiz.
Well, yeah. Well, he's not even old school, like the Gracies and stuff.
Okay.
My first wife back in Chicago, when we got divorced, she took a hobby called Shidokan, and she started
Yep.
fighting in this really, really cool dojo or whatever in Chicago, and she got her black belt, and she became a pretty successful woman fighter, and was fighting MMA bouts before, like they'd have like preliminaries before the men's bouts, and she fought a couple of big fights there. She went to Japan and fought a couple times,
Wow.
and she was doing Shidokan, and then one of the Gracies came and taught at her gym, and then she which one was it? Oh no, it was Shogun. Shogun came and taught
Wow.
at her gym.
Nice.
And that's where she learned her jiu-jitsu stuff. And so then she became this, like, you know, big grappler when before she was a striker. And that's what got me into it, was sort of, you know, watching her fight and learning about it through that. And then she would, like, drop these weird names, like, oh, blah, blah, blah came to our gym and fought. And I'd be like, okay, who? And then I'd go Google it and like, oh, okay, cool.
Wow.
That's kind of what got me started in it. But I don't follow it.
No, clearly she ran your
I just
household
watch
then.
it when it's on and just cringe every time someone gets a shot to the head.
I'm sure you had to learn it to you know, in case you mouthed off to her or something, she tried to choke you out. You had to defend yourself, man.
I did not learn it, but she got me really good once. We were after a show in Chicago, pretty soon after the divorce. She came to see me at a show, and we were hanging out afterwards in the hotel bar waiting for the bus to leave. And one of my true guys came up and said something about my girlfriend's been calling our tour manager over and over again trying to get a hold of me.
Threw you under the bus.
I think it was pre-cell phone days, and she got really stone cold. But we were divorced. It's not like we were trying to hook up or anything. But
Right.
she just got really, really but I hadn't mentioned a girlfriend. And she got really, really cold and quiet. And we go outside. We're standing in front of the bus, and I'm trying to you know, make things okay before I split. And I kind of put a hand on her shoulder, like, how kind of a thing, and she punched me right in the chest, like this really short little jab, but it literally knocked me off my feet. Like, I went up into the air and then fell backwards, and everyone on the bus started screaming and cheering and hooting and hollering, and it left a huge purple bruise right over like my sternum. Couldn't breathe. It was like not funny at the time, but it's pretty funny now.
Yeah,
because she's like 5'1". She's really tiny.
I was going to say, and for you to be able to look back at this and laugh at it, I mean, that says a lot, man.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry I'm laughing. That is funny, though, man.
That's a killer story, though.
Almost literally a killer
I
story.
was gonna say, maybe I shouldn't say it that way.
Ever been punched in the sternum?
Yeah,
yes.
we've both fought MMA, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it really hurts.
Never,
Yeah.
never
She was doing the thing where they were like kicking her in the shin over and over again until her shins were like
Callous.
little oak trees or whatever. Yeah, I'm like, no, that's all right. I don't need to do that.
Oh man, you gotta find calmer women, Chris. Come on.
My current wife is awesome. She doesn't punch me.
Nice. Yeah, don't teach her to.
It's good, yeah. Keep her away from the martial arts studios.
Yeah, really. Wow. So, what are some of the future plans, though? Obviously, more music and touring at some point. Like you said, you're not taking requests, but you're trying to get everywhere that you can. But what are your plans? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish with the Dreaming or on your own? As a musician, as a human being.
We're gonna go back out on tour in March. That's what I heard, and keep trying to push this single, Every Trace. And then I think we're going for another single, probably in the early summer, late spring, once
Nice.
this one kind of winds down. I think we're going to try and push this record for at least a year and a half. But Rich and I have already started writing new songs. I guess when he got kicked out of the band the first time, he wrote a bunch of music, and he's sort of sending that over to me slowly but surely. And I think we already have a good foundation for our next record. It's sort of following in this direction that we started. And I've been thinking about doing something on my own that was more purely electronic, not a rock band, but more kind of where I came from sort of music.
Right.
And then, just doing it. Because I have a studio in my house.
Okay.
And sometimes when the band's really busy, I don't have much time to sit down and write music. But sometimes when we get a month or two where we're not on tour, I have some free time. I can sit down and just sort of throw some ideas around. And not the pressure of writing an album, but just sort of open a bottle of wine and start making some noises and see what comes up, sort of a thing. You know?
It's creative outlet.
Creative instead of let's make a record with a hit single, but just sort of be creative for the fun of it.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear that. You're, like you said, getting back to some electronic stuff. I love the Dreaming, but I love your electronic side of what I've heard of it. And you mentioned Depeche Mode, which is one of my favorite bands, and to hear something deep like that would be incredible. And of course, they're still around. Just collaborate with them, get that together. That'd be cool.
I wish we could tour with them a third time. That'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So
get that as an East Coast tour, and we're there.
Well, yeah, I'd say. And Depeche Mode can crash on the couch too, man. We get everybody in there. Why not? Party at Mike's.
What's that? Depeche Mode and what?
I said Depeche Mode can
crash on the couch too.
Yeah. It's a big couch tour. I like it.
It better be in the Four Seasons, or I don't think they'll be there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. By the way, in your answer earlier, I thought of a couple great song titles. The End of Stabbing Came Near. That's one of the things you said. I think that would be a sweet album name for like a really dark album. And Slowly Painfully. Just putting
Slowly
it out there.
Painfully?
Yeah, that's when we asked you how the Dreaming came together. You said Slowly Painfully. I was
Slowly
like,
and Painfully. Oh, okay.
It'd be a sweet song title.
I was picturing like giving birth, but yeah, it was a long labor.
There's that too.
Wow.
Well, you guys have had. Chris, not to get apocalyptic, but imagine the world's going to end in 5 to 15 minutes here, something like that. What is the last song that you want to hear? It can be yours or anybody else's. You can hear it or perform it. But what are the last notes you want going through your head?
Somebody having sex. I wouldn't want it to necessarily be music. I would try and find my wife and have like one quickie before I go.
Okay, then what would the song?
Over here.
What would the song on the radio
End
be?
in Tears. I would go End in Tears, maybe. I think that'd be a good, appropriate one.
Okay.
It'll end in tears. It'll end in ruin. That's one of our songs.
I was gonna say if you want to combine sex and music, you could go with Lords of Acid maybe or something. But I don't know.
Yeah, Lords of Acid. That's romantic.
Yeah. You don't have to be romantic. There's 5 minutes left, man. Come on, you just.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That's true. You're not exactly saving that relationship for anything, I guess.
Is this the Mayan calendar question?
No. Just a common question we put out there. So again,
this interview's turned into something, hasn't it?
But you guys have a lot of EPs out there, and again, 2 albums out. Etched in Blood was the full length that came out in '08. Incredible album, and Puppet, which came out just in November of last year, and every
that's
trace.
An incredible album.
They both are.
I prefer Puppet way over Etched in Blood.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion, Chris. That's fine.
Puppet's really good. I like it.
Yeah.
I just felt Puppet's a much more focused record. Etched in Blood had a lot of weird little metal bits in it that weren't really my personal cup of tea, but things just kept getting pulled in weird directions by everyone. It's got some really cool songs on it, for sure. But I think that Puppet finally captured what it was that the Dreaming was supposed to do.
Well, I think the nice thing is, unlike a lot of bands, you're actually getting better as you go on in time. You're writing better music. Yeah. So and there's so many that
I
are.
started taking lessons. So.
Well, Every Trace is the single that's out right now. So go out and get Puppet. Go see these guys when they go on tour, and can't wait to check that out. And buy everything. Buy the old Stabbing Westward stuff. I assume you still get royalties from that. So you buy everything there you go, that Chris has done. And don't believe everything you read on the Stabbing Westward Wikipedia page, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, do. It's all true. Everything on Wikipedia is totally true. And Facebook.
Everything on the internet is true.
Yeah. What the hell is the internet? Anyway.
The internet. That's what Al Gore.
He invented it. Yeah, that's what we hear. What is this internet? What is this band Nirvana I keep hearing so much about?
Nirvana.
Yeah. Anyway.
So what is the smell of Teen Spirit?
Woo. That's Anyway, Puppet, go out and get it. Thanks to Chris for joining us here at Across the Board. We'll be back in a few minutes. I'm E. He's the Colonel. You're listening to us on hawkradio.org.
And acrosstheboardradio.com.